Inravio.com.
Hello again, everybody. This is Joe Larson, and you're watching the 505 on Racing Show. Welcome. I hope everybody had a nice Easter this past weekend, or Passover, or whatever you celebrate in your family. It's always good. One of those holidays that, I always remember as a kid that, I hope there's no like little ones watching, but when I was a kid, I didn't believe in the Easter Bunny ever because I knew there was no way my mother was going to let some bunny rabbit bounce into the house and give me candy. It's like from my first remembrances of Easter, I knew that wasn't happening. But anyway, welcome. We got a good show planned. We're going to take a look back at the career of Bill Elliot, also known as Awesome Bill from Dawsonville, and his championship that he had back in 1988. We're also going to take a look at NASCAR considering going all electric by 2021. Danika Patrick has her ride in the Indy 500, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And some news out of the new London Speedbowl. The Connecticut shores there, that track has gone through so many problems over the years, and it did not look like they were opening in 2018. But we're going to talk about some of the stuff that's going on to make that happen. But anyway, we're going to go right to Bill Elliot. Bill Elliot, there's a lot to talk about with Awesome Bill from Dawsonville, so we're going to get right into it. Bill Elliot, born October 8, 1955 out of Dawsonville, Georgia. Best known for setting the fastest single lap speed at Talladega at 212.809 miles per hour, and also at Daytona with a lap speed of 210.364 miles an hour, both in 1987, driving a Ford Thunderbird. He has children as Lauren, Bethany, and William Clyde II, also known as Chase, who is currently driving in the Monster Cup Energy NASCAR Cup Series, driving the 9 car. He did have the 24 car last year. But as I said earlier, he's best known for those lap speeds, and he became known as Awesome Bill from Dawsonville. He's one of those guys that worked his way into racing on the cup level due to Daddy's money, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. He was voted most popular driver 16 times, and after the 16th time, he withdrew his name from the balloting and told the fans, "I've had enough most popular drivers, let's give it to somebody else." He made his cup debut at the Rockingham Speedway in North Carolina in a car owned by his father, and he started 34th, did not finish due to an oil pump failure. Elliot competed for 5 years without any corporate sponsorship, just driving the car owned by his dad. In 1977, Elliot purchased a Mercury from Bobby Allison, which he drove in the Cup Series for a few years. And back in those days, the chassis, now, and I'm going to talk about that later on, about chassis, but back in those days, the body style determined the car, not the chassis, nothing else, not the engine, the body style, and the year of the car. 1988 saw Elliot with a real corporate sponsor. He received $500 from Harry Melling for one race in Charlotte. Harry Melling, the owner of Melling Tool. 1981 saw Melling give Elliot a 12-race deal. And it saw Elliot get 1 top 5 and 7 top 10s in 13 races, garnering 1 pole. Melling then purchased the Elliot team from Elliot's father in December of 1981. In 1983, Elliot took his first career win at Riverside in California, and he had 4 runner-up finishes, 1 at Daytona, and also saw Elliot finish 3rd in the points that year. Elliot got the Coors Brewing Company sponsorship, and this was a big one back in those days, a $400,000 deal. And Elliot went on to win 3 races with the Coors logo, 4 poles, and another 3rd place point finish. Elliot earned 11 wins, 11 poles, and 28 races, and also won the Winston Million. Elliot then was called $1 Million Bill for winning that, and it was a matter of winning a select races and called the Grand Slam. He only had to win 3 of the 5, and he did that. In 1986, Elliot finished 4th in the points. 88, he wins 6 more races and 6 poles and the Winston Cup, his championship year. Elliot broke his wrist, though, in Daytona in 1989, and although it was a tough healing, breaking your wrist and driving a race car is a tough thing, but he still hung on there. Elliot lost Melling in 1992 to move over to Junior Johnson. The deal, they did everything they could have done. So it was done. Melling was out of racing. Bill Elliot moves over to Junior Johnson in a car driven by Jeff Bodine, the 11 car, the Budweiser car. So he went from Coors to Budweiser. Elliot won 4 races in a row and another runner-up position in the final points tally in that year. Elliot left Junior Johnson in '94, and he started his own team, which lasted from 1995 to 2000. After the 1999 season, Elliot hooked up with this, oh my God, Ray Evernham. Ray Evernham bought him out. I can't believe I did that. Ray Evernham bought him out because Dodge was starting up or coming back into NASCAR, and Evernham wanted a Dodge team, so Evernham bought all of Elliot's equipment, and they went Dodge racing. Elliot drove for different teams the remainder of his career. He drove the 91 car for Evernham, the 39 for Chip Ganassi. He had Xfinity rides for Rusty Wallace. He ran a couple of races for Michael Waltrip Racing, and he drove for the Wood Brothers in 2007. Elliot started his 800th race, joining the 800 Club, which at the time he was only the 7th driver to have 800 starts in the Cup Series, and he got that start at Charlotte in 2009. In 2011, it was announced Elliot was an inductee into the NASCAR Hall of Fame, a great honor for a man who broke speed records in NASCAR and also had a championship. Elliot ran in the Cup Series 37 years. He had 828 races, 44 wins, and earned over $46 million racing in NASCAR. He also ran in the Xfinity Series for 12 years, only 43 races, with 1 win there. And he ran in the Camping World Truck Series for 2 races, and he had 1 top 5. He also ran in the K&N Pro Series West, which was known as the Winston West back then. 9 races and 9 seasons with 1 win. Bill Elliot was one of those drivers back in the day where a guy like that comes into the sport, homemade stuff. His brother Ernie Elliott built the motors. His dad owned the team. It was truly a family operation. And you didn't see that too much, you know, when you look back in the 70s. You know, people were still driving for people. There was some corporate sponsorships, not many, but Elliott was one of those guys. He proved himself. And when he won his championship, you know, you knew that things were only going to get better. And I thought myself back then that, you know, this guy's going to win more championships. Now, he didn't, for whatever reason. I don't know if when NASCAR changed the rules after that Talladega race and they changed the carburetors and they slowed the cars down, I don't know if that Ford Thunderbird, the aerodynamics on that Ford Thunderbird was so great as opposed to the other cars, and they were able to get the speed out of it. Because think about this then. Back then, in the 80s, the way the car was in the showroom was how that body was on the car. They raced. So if they said they ran a Ford Thunderbird, that's what it was. If they ran a Mercury Cyclone, that's what it was. If they ran a Buick Regal, that's what it was. You know, yeah, they went to templates and they had different templates, not like you see today. It was one single piece that two officials held each end. They put it over the roof. They put it on, there was one for the sides. And that's how they check these cars out. Now, and I say this all the time, if the decals aren't on the car, and I don't mean numbers and sponsors, I'm saying the headlight and taillight decals and the manufacturer emblem. If you lined up the Camry, the Ford that they're using, and the Chevy that they're using in primer gray, you'd be hard-pressed to say, that's this one, that's that one, that's the other one. You'd be hard-pressed to do that. But years ago, you know, you can go one day to the dealership and buy the car that won on Sunday. That ended. That didn't happen anymore. Because teching these cars became difficult. It became difficult because there was just too much to look at, and they made that. Now, and I've always said, they're running a Camry. They're running the Toyota Camry in the Cup Series. I don't know of any Camry built in the world today with the proper wheelbase to be a Cup car to have just two doors. Yet on the racetrack, it's a two-door car. Also, how many Camrys are rear-wheel drive? Zero. Zero cars are rear-wheel in the Toyota ranks. But they all have that. Now, we're going to talk about chassis. In fact, we're going to take a break, and we come back. We're going to talk about the chassis in racing today, yesterday, and in the beginning when we come back.
Hey, what's up? Oh, I was going to say what's up for some reason. Hey, we're Set It Up, and you're watching the Inravio TV network.
Village Music Shop of Mastic. 1-800-HEY-DUDE, your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop, 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Hi there, this is Buddy from Less Than Jake, and you are listening to Inravio TV. You're probably watching it too.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, Inravio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is Inravio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. I see we have quite a few people on the Facebook live stream. Thank you. And that's good. It's working out very well. Anyway, chassis. Let's talk about chassis and racing. The chassis used today on some of these cars in the Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, they're not new. They're fabricated based on factory specs. And you know, it's funny, when I first got involved with racing, I purchased my first race car from a guy named Clay Walston, who built the car new. He got a chassis, built the body, the interior, with intentions on running it. What happened was some financial issues got in the way, you know, because life gets in the way sometimes. And he still had his old car, but he decided to sell me his newly built car. So I go out and I get this car. Now I was one of these guys. I always had to have a list. I had to know what was what. And it was a Ford Mustang body. Now I don't want to say smart enough, but I knew that the Mustang didn't have a chassis. I knew that. I just knew it. And maybe I knew that because, you know, Safer Hall of Famer downtown George Brown bought his first car. Actually, he was building a car, and somebody said, "What body are you going to use?" You know, he goes, "I'm going to use a 62 Falcon." Now we all know the 62 Falcon, you know, cute little car, but they were accessible in the junkyards. So somebody said, "What chassis are you going to use?" He goes, "Oh, the one that's on it." And they said, "Those cars don't have chassis." And you know, he's new to this, and okay, fine. So he goes and finds a chassis. So I get this car from Clay Walston, and I'm asking questions because, you know, I know I'm going to wreck. So I got to know where the parts are. What parts are? When I go to the parts, what do I ask for? And he said, "Well, this chassis is an old Ford chassis, and the parts you could get from 1958 to 1967. It was the same chassis." I was like, "Really?" All they did was put a new body style on it at the factory. All right, so I raced that car, and trying to find parts for that were getting a little difficult. And a couple of years, or more than a couple of years later, I go out and I get this Chevy chassis car. And it was a Camaro frame chassis. And I asked again, you know, what year? Well, 68 to 74. It's exactly the same. And that confused me. But however, it worked. And I can remember you know, they said you run the Nova front clip or whatever because it had two cross members that made it a little bit stronger. Because we weren't back in those days going to the fabricator and having chassis built. I remember one of the first guys that showed up with an aftermarket chassis out of the Canadian Stock Car Products catalog, and you're like, wow. And boom, there goes the cost again, because now you're not going to any junkyard or fabricator, or dismantler to get that chassis. You got to order a new one. And the costs start escalating. Now, when you look at that, when you look at motor, transmission, drive shaft, rear end, the chassis technology, although there's been bars added for safety, has not changed in a good number of years. In the Cup level, in the Xfinity level, the Camping World Truck Series, same thing. The design of those transmissions, that's next, of those chassis is such that it's old technology still being used today. So what does that mean? Well, think about that. When you think about a rear end in a car, for those who don't know, the rear end is housing has the axles and the gearing for the car. Now, how many rear-wheel cars or rear-wheel driven cars are there on the roads today? Very few. It's going to be a matter of time before NASCAR adjusts to that and changes that. And a lot of people say, what does this all mean? Well, excuse me, what it means is that as much as the engines have changed and going from carburetors to fuel injection and aerodynamics. The main piece of the race car has not changed at the cup level. It's old technology, old gearing. Transmissions, yes, they've been updated, but it's still basically the same shape. It bolts in the same way. It's not new and fancy like the cars that shift by a computer. Even though it's an automatic, a computer's shifting it now. You know, years ago, the automatic transmission worked based on an RPM, moved it to the next gear, would spin to the next gear. And I'm no mechanic, and I'll be the first one to tell you that, you know, if my car doesn't start, I wouldn't even know where to look first. You know, as long as I had the key in the ignition, I wouldn't know where to look first. But I tore up enough equipment, and I mean I tore up enough equipment racing that I got to be good with chassis. Thus, my job with NASCAR as an undercarriage specialist looking at this stuff. And years ago, when we built these cars and took these chassis out of junkyards, or we found a car that we liked because some old lady had one parked in her garage because the husband passed away, you know, we took these things, and I can remember, you know, putting an X under the center section, you know, from one end to the other, so to make it stronger. Doing the same thing on the back end to make it stronger. Putting in all kinds of bars coming up from the bumper up to the uprights in the roll cage, and attaching those bars at different angles to the front clip of the race car. You know, all these kinds of changes and all these bars. And these cars back in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and 70s were so stiff that when you did wreck, and I wrecked a lot, your body absorbed all the damage, because what's going to move when everything else stops? And I'll use the analogy, you're going 70 miles an hour, and your front end of your car, you know, on the highway hits the bridge abutment or the guardrail, the back end is still going 70 for a short period of time. So is your body, so are your internal organs. You know, you're driving along, and the G-forces have all that stuff inside your body pushed to the back of your body, if you can picture that. And all of a sudden, you come to a sudden stop, that all comes crashing forward because it's in your body kind of loose. Your brain goes bouncing against your forehead. It's not pretty. But due to, and as a result of, deaths of certain race car drivers at certain racetracks and certain types of cars, the fabricators in NASCAR came up with a way that, let's let the race car absorb the energy, let's get these pieces to break off, let's get it to fold, let's get it to do something other than to stay stiff, because the drivers are taking all the abuse. And I could say, and I'll share this little thing with you, we all know I had that big wreck in '96, and strapped into my car, I'm in the seat, I'm strapped in, I got my harness, boom, all the belts, all 6 things hooked together in my stomach, and I could not adjust the mirror. I could not turn it up, down, sideways. I couldn't do it. That's far. That's probably a good foot and a half. And when I had the wreck, the mirror was broke. And I had one of those long mirrors that had 4 different mirrors at different angles, so I could see out this window, that window, the back window, and this other back window. The mirror broke. And the frame of the mirror was black. My helmet was red. The mirror frame had redness all over it from the paint on my helmet, and not that it was painted, but that's the color it was. And there were shards of glass in my helmet. So that means my head stretched that much. Now, I never put too much thought into that until I became a safety guy at NASCAR, and I'm watching a training film on safety, and they showed Johnny Benson driving around under caution at about 55 miles an hour, and something broke, and they had an in-car camera, and he hit the wall. They didn't have a Hans device back then, and his head hit this crossbar up here and the mirror. His body didn't move, so when they slowed it up really bad, and so that you saw every little movement and every piece of metal fold. You watched his neck stretch and his head hit, and thank goodness for him, at 55 miles an hour, it settled back where it's supposed to. Otherwise, it could have killed him. The Hans device thing, everybody felt that, oh, this Hans device, because Dale Earnhardt Sr. crashed, and that was already being tested, folks. And that was already being tested and tested some more and tested some more. Because NASCAR, if they're going to make you use something, they're going to make sure it works right. And part of that's liability, and part of that is they don't want their drivers getting hurt. We'll fast forward a few years later. The Hans device comes out, and we're at a trade show, and the new one that came out, because the first one, once it was in, you could do this. The newer one that came out slid in the back, so you could actually turn. Not that it made a difference with the full containment seat when you can't see. You'd have to look forward. And I can remember sitting in this. I'm gonna call it a seat wrapped in a cage with this device on an angle, and they put it and they slid me down this thing and to show that it didn't move, and that even though the strap was moving, no matter which position I had, it didn't move. So I did a little bit of testing for that, I guess you could say. But when you look at race cars of yesteryear, if you pull the bodies off them, unless you know that that bar was put in because this guy was in a wreck that the wheel came through, or this bar was added because somebody's bumper got into the car. Unless you know that, unless you're a fabricator and race these things regularly, you'd be hard-pressed if they took a body off the car and that raced in 1970 and then races today, you'd be hard-pressed to say which year that was, because it's the same. They don't make those changes anymore. But anyway, speaking of changes, we're going to talk about that a little later in the show. But when we're going to take a break, and we come back, we got Danika Patrick making some announcement and a photo of what she'll be doing when the Indy 500 comes up in May when we come back.
Hi, I'm Remington.
I'm Emerson.
And I'm Sebastian.
We're Palais Royale, and you're watching Inravio TV.
There we go.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, Inravio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is Inravio.com.
Hey, this is Chris Less Jake, and if Inravio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
Village Music Shop of Mastic. 1-800-HEY-DUDE. Your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop. 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Hi, this is Mike Jarecki from My Race News, and you're watching the Inravio TV network.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Danika Patrick. She got her wish. She retired from NASCAR or left NASCAR or whatever the case was, whichever story you want to listen to, had one wish, one goal. Run one more Daytona 500 and run the Indy 500. And there she is. With help from GoDaddy.com, Danika Patrick will compete in the 2018 Indianapolis 500 with GoDaddy.com in a car owned by Ed Carpenter Racing. Danika started her professional racing in IndyCar, did okay. I don't think NASCAR stock cars and Indy cars are even close to being similar. And I think and feel that Danika never adjusted to the bump and grind world of stock cars. Because in Indy, they don't touch, they don't bump, they don't rub. They're just too fragile. Be interesting to see how this works out for her, because I don't think she's a bad driver. I think she just caught up in some bad luck in most of her career. Because if you're in the cup level and in any sport, if you're at the top level, you had to be good at one point, somewhere, somehow, to be noticed, to get the opportunity. And a lot of people said, oh, that's because she's a girl or a woman. And there's a lot of other females in racing at different levels that could have hopped in a seat too. But, you know, NASCAR they're a marketing company. They got to market that. You need a woman. You need a woman in the sport. And when I say need a woman, because that gets the female fan more interested. That gets this young girl who's a teenager, who isn't girly girl, who wants to play with cars, saying, wow, if she could do it, so can I. That's why you do that. That's why NASCAR does things like that. You know, and when you have Bubba Wallace, Darrell Bubba Wallace, he being touted as, you know, the African-American driver, that the last one they really had was Wendell Scott, you know, back in the days. And it's kind of not totally true, because it was Bruce Driver was on the modified tours, African-American. Willie T. Ribbs in the Campbell World Truck Series. You know, they never made it up to the higher levels. And if you don't think there was plans for that back then, I can remember Bruce Driver showing up for the first tour race of the year with a major sponsor of Purina. You know, you didn't see that on the modified tour. There was Mario Fiore had golf, you know, oil, but other than that, there weren't, back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, big corporate sponsors on the modified tour. It was still local sponsors, where the guy worked or lived, or he knew somebody, or his brother-in-law had a business, or his father-in-law had a business, and they wanted to put some cash in the car. That's kind of changing now. The modified tour, when the Whelen Engineering took over, become the title sponsor, you started seeing other big corporations coming on board. And tool companies, Starrett Tool, Mayhew Tool, you saw stuff like that coming on board in the modified touring series. It costs a lot of money to run a modified tour, and it costs a lot of money to run a race car at any level. But to race a modified on a tour, you need to have at least 100 grand in your pocket, at least. And that's if nothing breaks. You don't blow a motor, you don't tear it up. And that's just for your car and expenses to run the car, regular upkeep and maintenance. And I can remember when Flamingo Motorsports won, and Mr. Sanderson and I, we were talking down in Charlotte, and we were talking about it, and I said to him, you know, hey, congratulations, I know you guys always have good-looking cars and blah, blah, blah. You know, you're having the race talk. And he says, yeah, he goes, but you know what's sad? He goes, it cost me $200,000 to race this thing, and I'm not going to even make 100. Now, most people would say, that's a bad business. You might want to get out. You know, as Junior Johnson said, the best way to end up with $1 million in racing is start with $2 million. But when you look at that, you know, yeah, it's a business, but it's not a business. You know, it's something that we do. And even on the cup level, BK Racing, we're going to talk about their woes again this week. It costs a lot of money to go racing. And we talked about purses last week, and they're not going up. Obviously, they were going down. And when we talk about the cost isn't going down. It keeps going up. And to pay people, you know, at the cup level, many of the teams, they're full-time employees. Some of the teams are volunteers, or they pay their way in. Some of the I don't want to say lower teams, but some of the less competitive teams, you know, hoping to get that break and to move up and to make some money and on the charter teams. This BK Racing is a charter team that just can't make it happen. But anyway, Danika practice. I wish her well. And here's what I think. And write this down in your notebook and put it on your calendar for like next year. Danica Patrick is going back IndyCar driving. It's my call. I'm making that prediction right now. She's going to prove herself that she can still wheel in IndyCar. Somebody's going to look. She's probably going to get another ride somewhere else because no race car driver really retires. They're just looking for another ride. And I think Danica is going to be back in Indy cars. I really do. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. But speaking of BK Racing, a bankruptcy judge appointed a trustee to manage BK Racing and replace car owner Ron Dannon as the team's financial decision maker. Now, they sold their charter to another team, but they need to operate. And it's funny that, and it's not funny, to have a non-racing person manage a race team. Because they're going to run it like a business, and they're going to say, this is bad business. Because they don't understand what this is all about. And even with your sponsorships, you get your sponsorship money, you pay bills, and some teams use that money wisely, some don't. And that's at every level. Every level, from the weekly racing series to at the lowest level in that racetrack to the cup level. Sponsorship money. Think about this now. Most of these teams to get a sponsor, what came first, the chicken egg? You have to have a team. You have to have a car at least. And so now you get your sponsor and you get that. Now what do you got to go out and get? You got to go get a driver. You might have one, but the sponsor might not like that driver. They might want somebody else. So you got to find a driver. Now you have to find a crew chief that knows what he's doing, who can relate to this driver. Then you got to get people. You have to have a shop. You got to have a hauler. And then you have to have somebody in the office. You have to have somebody that's making your airline reservations, somebody who's monitoring all that stuff. It's a business. It's a real business. And, folks tell me all the time, racing's not a business. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. And then you need to make money. You can't keep finishing 30th every week. You need to have some good runs to carry it over. You need those good runs. And even at the weekly level, I've seen drivers and owners at the weekly level who give up their whole car for like a set of tires that lasts 2 weeks. No, and I'll give away some of those little marketing secrets. See, what you need to do is you can't be afraid to ask for money, but at the same time, from a sponsor, at the same time, you need to tell them what they're going to get for it. Hey, listen, I'm thinking that we could do this, and for us to do this for you, this is what you need to do for us, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to market your products, and blah, blah, blah. When I tell you, I saw a guy, this whole side of his car had, I'm not going to say who it is or the company, but we'll call it Acme Corporation for lack of a better term. And they put Acme Corporation on all over the car because he bought a set of tires for about $800. Now, every picture that car is in is going to show that. Every video that the car is in is going to show that. Every sports newscast image of that car, that guy's going to be in it. And that guy just got a $10,000 deal for like $500. Hey, I'd do that. I help guys out all the time, but I take my spot accordingly. So here, if it's a little sponsorship, they get a little logo. If it's a big one, they get a big. If it's my car, it's all over the place. And when you see a team like BK Racing is in bankruptcy because they can't pay their bills, maybe this judge has the right idea. Let's get a guy in here that can manage your company because you didn't do a good job. I don't think that's the case. I just think they didn't have some good runs. They didn't get some nice payoffs at the payoff window, so to speak, even though the check gets mailed. You look at those things. You look at the big picture in racing. GoDaddy.com was with Danica when she came into Cup Race, and and I'm sure she built and developed relationships. Relationships are big in racing. You got to build those relationships. You know, and another trick to the trade that I learned, you know, if back in the days, we raced 20 times a year here on Long Island. We raced, in my class anyway, 20 times a year. I wouldn't go up to a potential sponsor and say, you know, and we'll go a low number, you know, all right, you know, sponsor my car for $2,000, this is what we're going to do. And, you know, when you start talking in the thousands, a lot of people are like, that's a lot of money. Well, this is what I used to do. For $100 a week, this is what I could do for your business. Everybody will pull out a $100 bill. There you go. Every Saturday. And then when you add it up at the end, it's $2,000. That was one of the things that I did when I was sponsoring. Or, hey, you know what? I need a sponsor for the pit fees. You know, right? It's whatever, $30 a week to get in. I got 3 guys, $90 a week times, you know, wow, $90. That's nothing. Here, where do I sign? And every Friday you go get $90 from the guy. But if I said to the guy, ask him for $1,800, he'd look at me like I had 2 heads. It's all how you approach it. It's all how you sell it. And I had a sponsor for the pit fees. I had a fuel sponsor, fueled by, you know, Joe's Towing, whatever. They paid for the fuel. They bought a couple of barrels. You know, I used 5 gallons of gas a week, maybe 10 some weeks. Gas is, you know, $10 a gallon. It's $100. You follow here? This is what we do. It's what you have to. That's how you have to look at it. And when you move forward with that, you got to use that money wisely. You got to use that money wisely, because if you don't use it wisely and you don't give back, and I don't mean financially, give back to your sponsors. You know, obviously Danika built a relationship with GoDaddy. When she wanted to go IndyCar racing, who stepped up? GoDaddy. It's a 1 race deal. The details of that 1 race deal have not been divulged, but they did the car, they did the logos, they did the suit. She's ready to rock and roll. It's about relationship building. And not only racing, but it's a part of life, folks. You build relationships. In business, you build relationships. You have a choice when you go and buy something at your local store. Do you go to the, I'll call it the big box store where they don't even know your name and buy that? Or do you go to the local guy when you walk in and he goes, hey, Joe, how you doing? How's it going? Yeah, all right, I'll take this. Okay, boom, here you go. Relationship building. That's what this racing thing is all about, building relationships. You know, you don't use people because that's not the way to do it. You build the relationships. And it's good to see that in this racing world that people are still doing that to a degree. And it's sad to see that a big team like BK Racing is in bankruptcy and the business is being run by a businessman who probably doesn't know anything about racing. Probably doesn't. Anyway, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to update you on the ongoing situations that are going on at the new London Waterford Speedbowl in Connecticut when we come back.
Hey guys, this is Jibs from Ocean's 8, Alaska, and you're watching Inravio TV Network.
Hey, I'm Raul Panther.
And I'm Commander B. Hawkins.
And I'm Russ Welly. We're some of the proto men. If we see you without this bracelet, you're punching the But if you have this bracelet from Inravio.com, you can win $100.
Put one of these on, or else.
What's up, guys? This is Assuming We Survive, and you're watching Inravio TV Network.
Welcome back, everybody. Just scrolling through the chat room and looking at Facebook Live. A lot of activity. Thank you, folks. But the new London Waterford Speedbowl, over the past, I'm going to say, 5, 6, 7 years, I've had a lot of problems, a lot of issues. Some mismanagement, new owners, and another new owner, and then the town telling them they can't operate because it's not safe, their grandstands aren't safe, and they're not going to open up. Well, the Speedbowl was in danger of not opening in 2018 due to concerns over the condition of its grandstands. Waterford town officials met with the management of the Speedbowl and are taking steps to make adjustments and some safety changes to the Speedbowl. The Speedbowl will open as planned. Races will go on as scheduled, and the minor repairs will continue throughout the season as long as the inspectors in the town see constant, continuous improvement of the safety issues brought forward. They'll be racing, and they'll have a full season. You know, they still do not have NASCAR sponsorship or sanctioning. I think that'll be just a matter of time when that does come back, because let's face it, NASCAR makes its money from the small tracks through sanctioning fees and licenses, and it was due to the legal issues that the previous owner had. We won't get into those here, but NASCAR pulled the plug. And it's kind of a shame, because I know all too well that, you know, holding a NASCAR license as a competitor, a co-owner, or a crew member, if you were injured at a racetrack, NASCAR helps soften the blow, so to speak. You know, if you have insurance, they'll pay whatever your insurance doesn't pay. And if you don't have insurance, they'll pay your bills up to a certain amount, and it's a lot. It's a lot that they pay. It's like $1 million. So, you know, and I always say, anybody who wants to knock NASCAR for what they do and don't do, I don't totally agree with it. Yeah, they make some decisions in running of their business that maybe we don't agree with, but then again, it's their business. They can do whatever they want. You know, it's worked since 1949. They do have some things they need to tweak, but Waterford Speedbowl will operate. It will operate. And that's like a drone view of the Waterford Speedbowl at night. And I'll tell you what, it's a nice place. I don't know if you've ever been there. I was never too pleased with the pit area, but I love the racing there. It's competitive. It's high banks, 3/8 fast, and the fans there are loyal. And it's one of those racetracks that I like going to. I didn't even know it existed until I went there for a modified touring race. You know, I always heard about the Speedbowl. I don't know, where's the Speedbowl? And that's where it is. It's over there. But things change and things keep changing. Anyway, NASCAR announced recently that all electric by 2021. All electric cars. Now, some of you that watch and listen and view do not remember when Richard Nixon was president, and he went to Bill France and said, "Listen, we're in an energy crisis. You need to like cut your races down." So Bill France, in his ultimate showmanship and marketing skills, explained to the President of the United States that we don't use the same fuel as the passenger cars. It's a different type of fuel altogether. But what we'll do is we'll cut the races 10%. So the Daytona 500 was really the Daytona 450. And all the races were cut 10%. It was actually 180, but that's how it was touted. And when you think about that, you know, going all electric. Now, I'm going to say this, and it's probably going to upset the powers to be, but they can't even get a gun to work on to take the lugs off. The pit guns are not only they're failing, 2 weeks ago broke in half. That's because they're banging it on the lugs. You know, 5 off, 5 on, and it broke in half. Now they're going to have electric race cars. How many electric failures are there going to be? You know, think about this. This this isn't so. I don't think they could put this together in 3 years or 2. It'll be 2 years because we're already in 2018. So you're talking 2019, 2020, 2021. They want to have this happen. And when you make a pit stop, you know, what's the driver going to say? Oh, it says my batteries are running low. I'm going to pit, and they plug it in for 20 seconds. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to do this. I don't know how they're going to do this. Are they going to do it with solar? They're going to put panels on the roof to keep it going. You know, I don't know. And you know, sometimes when these kind of announcements come out, I always look at it and say, where did this come from? Then you do your research and you look, and it came from the powers to be in the big corporate NASCAR castle in the sky. And it's just, I don't know. It's a crazy thing. It's a crazy thing. But anyway, weekly racing series is starting up. Some of the tracks are holding tech days. Some of the tracks are having their practices. The weather up here in the Northeast is not cooperating with the snow. It's just crazy. Look what happened with Martinsville a couple weeks ago. It snowed out. It snowed out. They had to run it the next day. Cold, cold, cold. Tough to race in the cold. It is so tough to race in the cold. It reminds me of the early April nights at Riverhead when, you know, you didn't want to take your coat off to hop in your race car with your fire suit because you'd be cold. Well, you'd start your car up and the windshield would like go fog up and you couldn't see, and, you know, because the heat and the cold. You've all been there. You've all gone somewhere in your car and your windows fog up. But anyway, I know we have a little bit of time left, but you know, I want to talk about something that's coming up. Our 350th show will be coming up sometime in May, and we've been here in Inravio talking about it and what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And we've always had a live audience, so I don't think that's going to change. I think we're going to still try to have a live audience for that event, 2-hour show, and actually a 2-day show, I guess. It's over 2 days. And looking back, 350 shows, I remember when I got past the first 10. I was like, wow, okay, well, I'm still here. Then 10 became 20, and then became 50, and 75. And it's just grown. And, you know, when you look back, I think it's like 7 years that we're doing this and talking racing. And, you know, we could have this chat tonight because there was no racing this past weekend, you know, of any significant top billing races anyway. And we look at this show, we look at this, and, you know, my old buddy WJ, he never missed one. He was always here. And like I said a couple of years ago, he's still never going to miss one. He's going to be at that show somehow, whether by a picture of him on the table or hanging on the wall. He'll be here for that. And, you know, some of the past guests we've had over the years always stop in and want to be a part of it. We have a good time, and you know, we go into the green room, so to speak, and have some food and some beverages. And it's all fun. And so, you know, show 350 sometime in May. I'm trying to back into the number. I think I know when it is. I just don't want to be, you know, because I know somebody out there is going to, nah, Joe, it's 351 or 349, but that's okay. My good buddy Roger actually did that to me one year. But anyway, as a part of that, and you know, if anybody does want to be a part of that anniversary show, just message us, message me, call me, text me, whatever you want to do. And if you want to be a part of it in the studio audience, you want to be a part of it in any way, shape, or form, just let me know. We'd love to have you. And in saying that, and I've never said this on my show ever, I'm going to say it today. You know, we are looking for a title sponsor for that show. And if you know a company that would like to be a title sponsor for our 350th anniversary show, tell them to get in touch with us, and then we can get in touch with them. And we'll make it happen. And we try to make it, not that we try, we make it worth their while. And, you know, we have a large viewing audience, and we go all over. And our Facebook Live, we're streaming on the internet, the show's on demand, and a lot of people, you know, catch it at work. And it's so funny how many people, you know, when I go on and look, that it's noon or 1 o'clock on Monday, and it must be their lunch break, and they turn it on and they watch, and I crack up. I was like, wow, they got to do it on the lunch hour. But it's good, and so we're looking. We we've had some nice people over the years help us out with our anniversary show. And like I said, this is the first time I'm saying this live because I think we've proven ourselves. I think we have a good following, and it'll be a good marketing opportunity for somebody out there who's looking to promote their business through the 505 on Racing Show. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, just let us know, and we'll take it from there. But it's going to be good. It's going to be fun. I got some things planned for that show that we're going to do and see, and hopefully we can look back on some of the funnier moments on the show, and who'll ever forget that John Visconti III when he came here, and we wanted him to feel at home, so we got a little helicopter and flew it over his head. And it's an inside joke, but he cracked up, and we all cracked up, and we still laugh about that today. And and Roger Oxley coming all the way down from Carmel, New York, not just on anniversary shows, but taking this 2.5, 3 hour ride to come be on the show, and then to turn around and go back home. And it's good. We have some loyal people and certain people that are in the chat room week after week. And if they got it stuck working or there's a Ranger game, they miss out, but they watch it like when they get home on demand or later during the week. So and that's all good, Certain people, like 22 Figure Eight, never misses a show one way or another. Jay Slice, and there's just so many. Winnie, there's so many others, and then there's the people down at NASCAR who watch it just to see what I'm going to say next, and we know that's happening because I've gotten some phone calls and emails. But I want to thank everybody. There's a lot of people that helped put this together, so we're going to have some fun. And like I said, it's sometime in May. Next week, I'll have a firm date on when the anniversary show is going to be. And I'm looking forward to it because who would have thought 350 shows? Wow. Wow. We're going to have some fun with it. We're going to have some special guests here on the panel with me, and we're going to probably rotate them all out. So again, if you're looking to be a part of that, just let me know. We'll find room for you. We'll make it happen. We will make it happen. Anyway, I think we're going to wrap this thing up. We've only got like a couple of minutes or so left. I'm not getting the frantic waves yet, so we're good. So, we got like a lifetime. We got 3 minutes. So, and my control room where Mikey's doing an awesome job, and he's never been a part, I don't think, of an anniversary show, so that'll be interesting for him as well. So again, we're looking forward to it. Anyway, the top series there at Texas Motor Speedway this weekend, the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, weather permitting, will be at the Thompson Motorsports Park for the annual Icebreaker, and they call it the Icebreaker for a reason. I've been to about 20 of them, and I think there was like 18 that were very, very, very cold, and the other 2 were just downright cold. And there was some snow at one, so that's why it's called the Icebreaker. It used to be the first race of the season for the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour under the ownership of Donald Honig, because that was part of his thing. I'm the first race. Well, now the first race the last couple of years is at the Myrtle Beach Speedway in South Carolina, and things change, things move on. But it's glad to see that most of the loyal NASCAR Whelen Modified tracks are still there. Stafford Motor Speedway in Connecticut, Thompson Motorsports Park, Riverhead Raceway. The ones that are always there, those weekly people who, and I'll tell you, it's a struggle for them to put on that show, but they do it. They do it anyway. So anyway, again, I hope everybody had a nice Easter, Passover, and everybody's going well. So I want to thank everybody for taking time out of your busy schedules tonight to watch and be a part of the show. Those in the chat room, those in Facebook Live, thank you. I saw some new names and faces in the Facebook Live, so that'll be interesting. A gentleman who I went to high school with some 40 years ago, I saw that he was watching as well. So thank you, and it's all good. So wherever your endeavors are going to bring you this week, please be safe, please be careful. Give somebody a hug, tell them you love them. God bless you all. Good night, everybody.
Inravio.com.